forward, follow me. If I hesitate, push me. If I am may kill me, avenge me. If I am a traitor, kill me.
Gangsters, cops, and politicians, get ready to rock. We're on a mission. Each one of us shares our own vision. When I was on the yard, I went real hard. While I patrolled the streets, all the G's on me. When I was on the yard, I went real hard. While I patrolled the streets, all the G's on me.
Happy New Year 2024. It's your host, Gabe Morales. We have lots of good content planned for you this year. I will continue covering prison gangs by the last names of A through Z, as well as get into some special episodes that I think you'll enjoy. We are going to resume with the D names. I'll start off with Richard Weddle Dean from Chiques. I show that he was NF at DVI in the early 70s with a B number, then got out and came back into the system under D number 83566. He was housed at CRC in 1988 when, on July 4th of that year, he was killed by Veneno from Pomona 12th Street at CRC on the orders of M.A. shot caller Ruben Tupi Hernandez. There's Jesse, a.k.a. Dragon, a.k.a. Draggy De La Cruz from Woodlake, located in Tulare County. I show he hit CDC in 1972 under B number 47659. Understand that he joined the NF soon after that and was housed at DVI by 1973, where the NF had a stronghold. However, I show that he left the organization in the late 1970s when many NF left the organization due to internal conflicts and rules like no hard drug use, which most of them were hard drug users and knew that they could be subject to hits by Death Row Joe and Babo for violating the reglas. I showed that he was off that B number by the early 80s, but then returned with a J number, 27540, and served a few years under that, and understand now is a legal advisor on court cases. There was Fidel Boxer de la Riva from Selma. I show he was in CDC in the 1980s under C number 64432 and soon joined the NF. He was housed at Pelican Bay for many years, where he was considered to be an NF captain. He then was housed at Pleasant Valley State Prison in 2012 and was later considered to be a dropout.
As far as what one does in a cell, 24 hours a day, one has nothing but time but to think and plot.
I show he is not in custody, so hopefully a free man enjoying the good things in life. There was Deus de Leon, known as Diablo, from Tracy. I understand he was part of the Corny Tristan car and did time at New Folsom when I was there on B Yard. I recall him saying that Tibbs Morado gave directives to the Northern Structure House there to grow their hair in ponytails at the top portion of the head so that NF and NS could identify each other easier, as the Sureños often shaved their heads bald, known as pelones. Understand that he was then moved to Corcoran shortly after it opened and was housed there in 1989. In 1990, he was only validated by CDC as being Northern Structure. I believe he became NF by 1993, the year I left CDC. While Diablo was housed in CDC, he became pretty fluent in Nahuatl, which is Aztec language, to speak in code. Understand that he was shot at Corcoran, and believe it or not, an Aryan Brotherhood member named David Jepson helped him with the lawsuit. Jepson was known as a jailhouse lawyer, and even though the Aryan Brotherhood and NF were deadly rivals, this was more of a case where they both hated CDC more than they hated each other. But I understand that the NF did not take kindly to him working with the other side. and he fell out of favor while he was housed at Pelican Bay Shoe.
Mexican mafia, known as La M, is always battling for control with the Nuestra Familia prison gang, or NF. Northern Mexicans, or norteños, against southern Mexicans, known as Sureños. This former NF shot caller, Deus De Leon, known as Diablo, calls it all a deadly game.
Yeah, they're enemies. The bottom line is, if you get the opportunity to kill one of them, kill them. Just like you know for a fact, you've been taught, if they have the opportunity to kill you, they're going to kill you. So strike before they strike.
Down! Down! And there are other deadly associations. The Aryan Brotherhood and Mexican Mafia have a shaky alliance against the Nuestra Familia and Black Guerrilla family. It's a daily puzzle for corrections officers.
You're constantly looking at the alliances and who's getting along with who today, who can go out on the yard together, who can't go out on the yard together.
And Pelican Bay prison gang investigators 6 months ago
It's all a hit list for the NF.
caught a Nuestra Familia gang member carrying a massive internal hit list from one prison to another.
300 or 400 people marked for death.
Right.
Like this weapon, the hit list was hidden in his rectum. The hit list was headed here to the security housing unit known as the Shoe. This is where all the hardcore prison gang members are locked down 22 hours a day. They never leave their cells without being handcuffed first. These are the top shot callers who give the orders to kill. More often than not, to kill their own. Diablo is now on that hit list.
We'll sit here and tell you how proud to be a Mexican, and then we'll send you out to a yard to kill another Mexican. You know, so, I mean, if that's not hypocrisy, what is?
There was Martin Pingo, a.k.a. Delgado, out of Farmos, but I also know that he claimed Southside Stockton. I had him at C facility, and he was part of my kitchen crew when he and an NF went to the weight pile, retrieved a couple shanks from some Africano prisoners, and then hit 3 Serenos right underneath the Central Tower yard gunner at yard recall. He had D number 1007. Understand that he was released and then came back with J number 11545 and was not validated as Northern Structure to 1996, almost 10 years after I pegged him as being part of the structure. I remember also he was a rapper. I'm not sure if his career ever took off, but I show he's currently not in custody. There is Hector T, a.k.a. Topo, Delgado Amparo, out of Salas. I show he was Northern Structure in the early 90s under H number 75045. Then understand that he got out on that number in 94, but had several parole violations. Then committed a bank robbery in 1996, whereby he was assigned BOP number 99520-011. Also understand that he was part of meth cells, and I believe was indicted on a RICO case around the year 2000. He was released in May 2017. There was George, a.k.a. Jorge Delgado Cisneros, out of Santa Clara. This guy was around when the shoe war happened in 1968 at San Quentin under A number 67665. Understand that he was an ambassador for Chalo Hernandez, whereby he approached a young supporter of the NF at San Quentin who was being transferred to DVI and gave him orders and instructions on the Nuestra Familia Mexicana Constitution and gave him permission to bring in new younger members. But he had to memorize the Constitution because they didn't want a chance giving him a hard copy and that it might be confiscated by staff, as this copy was soon confiscated by San Quentin Investigative Sergeant Bill Hankins. There was Bernard, a.k.a. Boxer de Los Angeles, out of the San Juan Milpitas area. I understand he was Northern Structure in the 1990s, but was only validated as associate. He was convicted of a drive-by shooting in 1983 and sent to the California Youth Authority. He then had some YA violations and then came into the adult system on a firearms charge in 1991 under H number 27659. Understand he did a short stint on that one, but was convicted of a robbery in 1994, whereby he was given 17 years. He was housed at Pelican Bay in the year 2000, but I show was out of custody by at least the year 2010. There was Black Rudy Del Real out of San Juan. He was an NF member in the 1970s under B number 66927. Understand he murdered an individual named Richie Hernandez on October 17, 1976, but was not validated as NF until 1979. Understand that he was finally released on his B number, but came back with T number 86219. But I show was out of custody on that number by at least the year 2007. There was Alexander, a.k.a. Scrappy Diaz. I heard he was from San Jose, but then had tattoos of Oakland, so I'm not sure about this guy. I only mentioned him because he claims to be the co-founder of the Northern Riders in the year 2001, but states that he didn't meet Northern Rider founder Snoop until the year 2003, so that doesn't add up either. But he had a T number of 1738 and was validated by CDC in 1998, did some time at Tehachapi Shoe, as well as Kern Valley State Prison. And he is currently housed at Kern Valley State Prison. There was Gino, a.k.a. Buster Diaz, out of Gilas. I remember this guy at C facility in the late 1980s, and there was a lot of chatter when he came in. He had C number 14952. I guess he was known as being an enforcer at one time, and with that early C number, probably worked for Black Bob. There's a Vincent Harold, a.k.a. Chente Diaz, who's from the Chino Sinners, but also had ties to Spokane, Washington. I show that he entered the system after a burglary charge in 1979 under C number 5263. He then got released on that in 1981, but came back on a robbery beef in 83 and given a new C number of 69517. I show that he got an assault by prisoner charge at Soledad in 1984, as well as another assault by prisoner at San Quentin in 1985, where he was given an additional 6 years. I show that he was at Folsom in 1988 and was busted in Reno in 1995. I show then he was busted by the feds under BOP number 71217-0112, and I believe was deported after that, as he's a Mexican national. There was Isaac Sueño Dimas from Sacra. I show that he was Northern Structure, possibly NF, in the late 1980s under C number 93484, and I believe DO'd in the late 1990s, as he appeared on several no good or bad news lists. There was Abraham Huero Din Castro para Salas. He entered the Youth Authority in 1974 under YA number 09087. He then was housed in the adult system at Vacaville in 1978 under B number 89347. I show that he was at CIM in 1985, but released on that B number, but came back with D number 11789 in the mid-80s, and was involved in transporting illegals with his brother, Richard Casper Din Castro, also from Salas. Casper was a well-known captain at DVI in the mid-70s under B number 58346. I showed that he paroled in 1976, and I recall this guy being in Washington State in the late 70s. Believe it or not, he was not validated as being NF until the late 70s. He came back in the system in the 1980s with C number 59193, and their stand was hit at San Quentin by the Black Bob hobo car, and had already dropped out of the organization since he ran under Bobble. He was busted for transporting illegals in the San Diego area in the early 90s, and did time at Richard J. Donovan in 2004, as well as Soledad in 2012. Under P number 39325, but I show is currently not in custody. There was Eddie Anselmo Dominguez, aka Big Square, who was from Hollister. But check this out. He was born in Washington State, so there's another one. Even though many gang investigators say there's no NF connections to Washington State, except maybe a few wannabes recently. Big Square had B number 58908 and was sponsored in the NF by Oscar Alderete. He's made a squad leader, and I show stabbed an individual with the last name of Etheridge in May of 1976 at DVI. He was indicted on the RICO case in 1982 and dropped out of the organization. There was Sammy Dominguez out of Kern County. I had mentioned him in a previous episode because he was at the Fresno meeting with David Hernandez when several NF discussed taking out NFM founder Chalo Hernandez in Bakersfield. For that incident, he was given C number 1633, but is now a reborn Christian and gives talks about the dangers of the gang lifestyle. There was Vic Del Porto, a.k.a. Thomas Hernandez, out of Napa. Some of you guys are asking, is there any NF ever out of the Napa Valley? Yes, there has been, as well as nearby Sonoma County. I had him at C facility as my tier tender in the early 90s under B number 75650. I remember him being very quiet and very respectful, but I don't believe he was validated as being an NF until 1995. He then was released on his B number, but then came back under T number 75129, and I show was out of custody by at least the year 2011. There's Gordon Chino Douglas out of Oakland. I show he was Northern Structure in the mid-1980s under D number 12468, but was not validated as such until 1996. I show that he was at Pelican Bay from the year 2000 to 2012. He then was moved to High Desert State Prison and then to Pleasant Valley State Prison, where I understand he was made an NF regimental commander under the state faction and tried to hit Matt Roach in the year 2020. He is currently housed at High Desert State Prison. There is Eric Littleman Duarte out of San Jose. I show that he was Northern Structure in the early 1990s under H number 60968. He is involved in multiple bank robberies over the years and given BOP number 89467-011. My understanding is that those bank robberies were pulled on behalf of the NF, and he was going to fight those cases, but was told no by the brass. Understand that he was released from the BOP and then came back into CDC under T number 24814, and he is currently held at Valley State Prison in Chowchilla. There's Stephen Littleman Doobie out of San Fran. I show that he had a battery charge, would send him to the YA in 1987, but he paroled in 1990. He had several parole violations in the early 90s, and then came back in 1993 under H number 81811. He had multiple parole violations after that, and then caught a new case under P as in Paul 92054. I show that he was popped at San Quentin in September of 2000 with a shank, and continued to be housed at San Quentin for several years, but I sure is currently not in custody. There's Coronado Spooky Duenas out of Salas. He had B number 71073, and I'm not sure what he did to piss off the Carnales, but he was high on the NF hit list by 1976. There's Leonard Lalo Duque Espinosa from King City. I only have him listed as a Northern Structure Associate in the year 2007 under P number 99868. But somebody asked about NF and Northern Structure involvement in King City, which I understand is known as having a lot of Sereno activity. So there you go. There was Andrew Shotgun Duran out of Merced. I show that he was sent to the Youth Authority in 1980 and 1984, and then caught a dope case in 1987, which gave him D number 54377 in the adult system. He paroled in 1988, but had multiple parole violations and drug arrests in the 1990s. Came back under J number 5936, got off of that one, then got busted for dope in the year 2005 and given V number as a Victor 66154. But I show is currently not in custody. There's a Danny Duron out of Fresno. I'm not sure if this guy was NF or renegade drug dealer, but I show that he was killed on November 10, 1976 by a youngster named Casper Silva, who was involved in a rash of killings on behalf of the NF when he was running with Sleepy Villagrana, also from Fresno. I show a Robert Trigger Duran out of Poros. I show that he was an NSOL with V numbers in Victor 42938. And was indicted under Operation Red Soul in the year 2015 and given 56 to life. And then there's a guy that I only know as Chango Duran, as seen in this picture here with Fresno shot caller Eddie Krackers of Indiola. I know that he was NF and had C number 76078. I'm not sure if he's from San Jose or Sacra. So if some of you old-time veteranos know who I'm talking about, maybe you can educate me on that guy. And so, I know that was a quick run-through the D names. Let me know if you want more details on somebody I missed. Hope you enjoyed this episode and continue watching throughout the rest of the year as we cover Nuestra Familia members over the approximately past 60 years. For now, this is Gabe Morales signing off for Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians. If I go forward, follow me. If I hesitate, push me. If they may kill me, avenge me. If I am a traitor, kill me.
Gangsters, cops, and politicians, get ready to rock. On a mission, each one of us shares our own vision.